Coming up on Network Africa. A man, Christopher Okello Onyum, is sentenced to death by hanging for the murder of 4 toddlers at a school in Uganda last month. The United States imposes sanctions on former Democratic Republic of Congo's president on suspicion of supporting rebel groups. Plus, the remains of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu set to be placed in a mutually agreed mortuary. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. A Ugandan court has sentenced a man to death by hanging over the killing of 4 toddlers at a nursery school in Kampala. Christopher Okello Onyum was found guilty of fatally stabbing the children inside a daycare center earlier this month. The court rejected his claims of mental illness, ruling he was fully aware of his actions during the attack. Judges described the crime as brutal and without remorse, citing strong forensic and eyewitness evidence presented during the trial. While the death penalty remains legal in Uganda, executions are rare, making this ruling a shocking and emotional moment for the nation. Meanwhile, rescue teams are racing against time in western Uganda after a deadly boat disaster on the Nguse River. Dozens of people are feared dead after a vessel carrying between 35 and 40 people capsized, leaving just one known survivor. Search crews combing the river hope to recover bodies as the scale of the tragedy becomes clearer. Authorities say the boat was dangerously overloaded, raising serious concerns about safety enforcement on local waterways. A controversial new bill in Uganda is sparking fierce backlash, with critics warning it could silence dissent and cripple the economy. The proposed Protection of Sovereignty bill would label individuals and organizations receiving foreign funding as foreign agents, with penalties of up to 20 years in prison. Rights groups say the law mirrors similar crackdowns seen in Russia, targeting activists, journalists, and political opponents. President Yoweri Museveni has called for revisions, but insists Uganda must resist foreign influence. We're still in Uganda, a controversial, well, I beg your pardon, in the DRC now. The United States has imposed sweeping sanctions on former President Joseph Kabila, accusing him of backing the M23 rebel group. Washington claims Kabila financed the militants, encouraged army defections, and even attempted to launch attacks from outside the country. Under the sanctions, all of his US-based assets have been frozen, and American businesses are barred from any dealings with him. The move comes amid escalating violence in eastern DRC, where M23 rebels have seized key territories. US officials say the action is part of a broader push to stabilize the region and enforce a fragile peace deal with neighboring Rwanda. A legal battle over the burial of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu is intensifying in Pretoria, South Africa. A court has heard his remains will now be placed in a mutually agreed mortuary as disputes continue between his family and Zambian authorities. The former leader died in South Africa, sparking a cross-border standoff over who has the right to bury him. Earlier this month, a South African court blocked the repatriation of his body, delaying funeral plans. An appeal is pending, leaving the final decision and Lungu's resting place, still uncertain. A unanimous judgment by the Supreme Court has set aside an order made by a court of appeal here in Nigeria, ordering the maintenance of status quo in the leadership dispute in the African Democratic Congress, on which the Independent National Electoral Commission is recognizing or de-recognizing the David Mark leadership of the party. A 5-member panel at the Apex Court ordered parties to return to the Federal High Court for expeditious hearing of the case filed by an aggrieved chieftain of the party, Nafiu Bala Gombe, challenging, among others, the emergence of the Mark-led leadership of the party.
After months of legal tussle, the Supreme Court makes a definite pronouncement on the crisis rocking the African Democratic Congress. Lawyers and party members from both sides are present at the Apex Court to hear the verdict. On April the 1st, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, had removed Senator David Mark and Rauf Arigbesola from its portal and website as ADC National Chairman and Secretary, citing a Court of Appeal judgment. The electoral body said it will, in line with the order of maintenance of status quo ante bellum, not recognize any of the warring groups until the dispute is determined. The 5-member panel of justices led by Justice Garba Lawal arrive and delve straight into the judgment. In a unanimous judgment, the Apex Court set aside the order made by the Court of Appeal ordering the maintenance of status quo ante bellum, on which INEC acted in de-recognizing the David Mark-led leadership of the party. The court held that the Court of Appeal acted beyond its jurisdiction by issuing an order after it had already dismissed a case brought before it by one of the groups. It further directed the groups to return to the Federal High Court for continuation of hearing of the case. The Apex Court held that the appeal that was filed before it by Senator David Mark succeeds in part, even as it dismissed the aspects that challenged an ex parte order the Federal High Court made for services of processes in the suit filed by aggrieved members of the party. The David Mark-led group jubilates after the judgment. Parties to both sides speak on the judgment.
The Supreme Court allowed the appeal of Senator David Mark. Relax. In fact, the order made by the Court of Appeal that status quo ante bellum be restored had been set aside. In other words, the basis upon which INEC acted to remove the name of Senator Mark and his escort had been removed.
The court that can make an order for status quo ante bellum is a court that has proceedings pending before it. And since the Court of Appeal had correctly held that the appeal before it was an incompetent appeal, that was a complete abuse of process, there was nothing again pending before the Court of Appeal to which it can engraft an order of status quo ante bellum.
With the verdict of the court, there appears to be temporary respite for the African Democratic Congress. All eyes are now back to the Federal High Court, where Nafiu Bala Gombe and David Mark will continue to tussle on the legality or otherwise of the leadership of the David Mark-led group.
Staying in Nigeria, the Federal Executive Council has approved the construction of a new Carter Bridge in Lagos for a contract sum of 0.9 billion naira, and the demolition of the existing bridge. This is one of the resolutions taken at the meeting, which was chaired by President Bola Tinubu. The council also approved the terms of an agreement that resolved a 20-year dispute with Bi-Courtney Aviation Services Limited over the MM2 airport in Lagos, with the company agreeing to write off a 130.2 billion naira debt and hand back the local MM1 airport to the federal government. Our State House correspondent, Larry Lassisi, explains.
The council chamber is the venue for the Federal Executive Council meeting. In attendance are cabinet ministers, key aides of the president, and other members of the council. With President Bola Tinubu presiding, the meeting commences with the swearing-in of one commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission and 4 permanent secretaries. The meeting then proceeds into a closed session. Afterwards, some of the ministers highlight the key resolutions of the day. The Minister of Works outlined 10 key infrastructure projects approved.
We now convocated stakeholders engagement, and all the technical people, experts all over, the country, and even those with vice president, all agreed that we could not redeem Kata Bridge, and it has to be, completely demolished and rebuilt. And CCCC won the contract, 548.98 billion. So we're going to have a brand new, Kata Bridge with very extensive, navigational waterway of 105 meters by 2. And so there will be a lot of improvement.
Council also approved 2 memos for the aviation sector.
I can happily tell you that this government has resolved that issue, a 20-year-old dispute, once and for all. Council today approved the terms of the agreement we reached with Babalaki as to settle all the vexed issues surrounding that airport. Immediately after today, the federal government will now begin to earn its own share from the operations of MM2.
The second approval was for the establishment of a Nigeria aircraft leasing company.
This will be an SPV that will be wholly run by the private sector, that the private sector will invest in. In fact, we have ready investors already. They're just be waiting for this FEC approval. And of course, backed by governments, by which we can get aircraft into the country under one SPV.
Council also gave approval for some rail projects.
One is the Lagos Green Line Rail Project Phase 1A. The second one is Kano State Metro City Rail Project. And the third one is Kaduna State Light Rail Project.
The Minister of Works also stated that the President has received a list of contractors being owed and stated that those being owed by the Ministry of Works and other MDAs will be paid very soon. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
And across the country, training programs in digital tech, vocational trades and technical education are gaining momentum, and initiatives like 3MTT reaching over 135 young people. A goal: build a modern workforce and drive Africa's largest economy towards a $1 trillion future. Major hurdles remain as poor infrastructure and persistent skill gaps still threatening progress. Now, even so, for many young people, these programs are becoming a critical pathway from joblessness to opportunity. I want to bring in now the founder of AIM One Company, Isaiah Itua, who joins us virtually here in Lagos. Isaiah, great to see you. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Great to meet you. Great to see you again, Marachi.
Yeah,
Please confirm you can hear me.
I can hear you. Unfortunately, we can't see you. It does seem like the lights went off where you are. Wow, these are the challenges that we have.
Nigeria.
Well, not to make any joke out of it, but really it is serious. So we can just hear you, okay? There are so many opportunities for young people to scale up these days. Isaiah, there are reality TV business shows, programs for young graduates, postgraduate degrees in some cases. Why do you think there is a rise in the number of programs now than ever before?
Thank you very much, Amarachi. Once again, thank you for having me. The reality is what we are seeing today is a gap that has been existing for a very long time. The reality is that we have seen that Africa doesn't actually lack young, talented people. We have observed an exodus of our people for greener pastures. What they lack is a structured and very intentional pathway that would connect this young talent to the industries. What we are also seeing is that we are acknowledging the fact that there's a gap within the educational sector, that traditional education cannot prepare these young individuals for the realities and the fast evolution that we have demands within these industries today. And that's why you're seeing private sector and individuals come together to create programs like this to enable, the training and preparation of these young individuals. And I would say that we have a lot of, programs going on, like you clearly stated. It's quite saturated, a lot of certifications, but not every program actually tries to transform the mindset and the thinking of these young individuals into what what is needed in the market. And that's what we are trying to do. And that's why the marketing mentorship program, was built by A1 company.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk a bit about that. You recently launched that marketing program for young people. How is this different from all the other programs out there?
Great. I think that's an exciting question because we've been asked that question a couple of times. One key factor is that it's not a training program per se, it's a leadership development program. We have layered the fundamentals of marketing, key frameworks of marketing for these young professionals, and layered it with business trainings so that we can then nurture individuals that are, yes, business leaders, but with marketing expertise. We've seen the gap within the industries where marketing professionals are shoved to the side to be just promotional and communications, to play promotional communications role. That's because most of them do not actually have an understanding of the business language, and how to deliver on brand and business goals, right? And so what we have done is create a system that connects these young individuals with industry experts. And we have seen it in three layers in terms of our distinction. First of all is our reach. We've been able to hit 8 countries coming from Nigeria, Tanzania, Namibia, Kenya, Gabon, and the likes. We've also been able to have our cohorts or our participants, mentees, work on real-life briefs. One example was what they worked on during this cohort with Imperial International Limited, giving them their real brief. So this is not hypothetical briefs, but very, very practical and real-life Nigerian brand briefs as well. And then the rigor. Over 300 people showed interest, and we selected only 30. It shows that we want a very exclusive cohort that are prepared for leadership in the nearest future.
I'm just wondering if there will be follow-ups on these participants after the program is over.
Definitely. One thing that every leader should have is system and the ability to think in systems and engines. And that's one thing we've worked on. What we have is we've inducted this newly graduated cohort, into our community, our alumni community and the A1 community, where they then sustain the relationship they have and also engage with previous cohorts. It's exciting to say that we even had a mentor this year who was a mentee from the previous cohort. Don't worry, I'm still experiencing Nigeria right here. So we have a mentor who was a mentee in the previous cohort. And we also have a mentee who went on to win a couple of awards from opportunities within the platform. And mentors also who got references from our platform who had moved to Canada. So it's a community where they get to have opportunities, to engage in future.
So glad that we can finally see the face behind the voice. Well, we have to commend our technical team for making this happen. Final question, Aizehi. How can employers maximize the benefits of these programs? Or should they only be targeted at just making entrepreneurs out of these participants?
Very valid question. I think there's a false narrative about, having to choose between being an entrepreneur and being an employee within the ecosystem. I think you can thrive in both ways if you have the ground skills, which requires commercial fluency, which requires strategic thinking, which requires thinking in systems, like we said. So even if you're technically sound, you should be able to also speak the business language. And if you have all of these grits and all of these skill sets, you can win both as an employee, right, and as an employer. So we're not trying to create entrepreneurs. We're not even trying to create just employees, but we're trying to create better skilled professionals and leaders, marketing leaders within our ecosystem. We would see the impact on both the individual household income, businesses and brands, as well as our economy when we have highly skilled individuals being exported in terms of skill set and then growth in our GDP overall.
Well, Isaiah, this has been the bravest interview so far. I mean, the powers went out. The power went out at the start of the interview, but you soldiered on. Thank you again for coming on Network Africa.
Thank you so much, Amarachi, for having me. Happy Workers' Day, Africa.
Yeah, indeed, happy Workers' Day to you and happy Workers' Day to all Nigerians. Some of us still at work doing the work, and we will continue. So cultural diplomacy does play an important role, doesn't it, in strengthening relations between countries. It was emphasized when the International Women's Society held an event at the Italian consulate recently. That event was also a courtesy call on the Consul General and his spouse. President of the Society, Ifemina Oji, presented the IWS to the Consul General, Ugo Boni, highlighting similarities between Nigeria and Italy and the celebration of both communities.
Today, we celebrate the community of Nigerians in Italy and Italians in Nigeria, men and women who continue to excel in diverse fields, carrying the Nigerian identity. Their success stories are a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the strength of cross-cultural exchange. Today is more than a celebration. It is a reminder that when cultures meet with openness and respect, they do not lose themselves, they enrich one another. As the International Women's Society, we are especially proud to be part of this dialogue. A few of you have been fortunate to attend diplomatic dialogue sessions I've had so far. And our mission has always been to foster inclusion, primarily, cultural understanding, and meaningful connections among women. Events like this reinforce our belief that collaboration across borders is not only beneficial, it is essential.
Well, Consul General Ugo Boni, who's been in Nigeria for nearly 4 years, praised Lagos for its vibrancy, but credited much of the state's success to the impact of women. He shone the spotlight on his beautiful wife. She, in turn, acknowledged the strength of women in building societies.
Both Italy and Nigeria share something remarkable: strong, resilient, creative women who shape society in ways both visible and invisible. In Italy, women have long been at the heart of family life, entrepreneurship, art, and innovation. From fashion houses to scientific research, from culinary traditions passed down through generations, from grandmother to mother to daughter, to leadership in institutions, Italian women are builders of culture in every sense. And here in Nigeria, the story is just as powerful. Nigerian women are leaders, entrepreneurs, community builders, and cultural ambassadors. Their energy, determination, and ability to navigate complexity with grace is something that deeply impresses anyone who spends even a short time in this country. And if I may say, one of the most effective, if unofficial, bridge builders in any diplomatic mission is not the Consul General, but the spouse of the Consul.
Women are the energy and the strength. Even if she doesn't have that strength, she still, for love of her close one, friends and family, she takes out this strength. And I congratulate you all for everything you've done. And what I have to say, me, my husband, and our 2 kids that were small when we arrived here, now they are taller than us. My husband had some experience of living in Africa before coming here. For me, for myself and kids, it was something that we just studied through the internet, and we didn't know actually what to expect here. It wasn't what we actually found. It was total love. I don't know how you do. You gave us so much energy. We met so many beautiful people. My kids are surrounded by beautiful, very nice friends. And we, even in the holidays, we keep meeting each other. So how can I not call this country home?
China is making a bold economic move, scrapping tariffs on imports from nearly every African country. From today, 53 nations will enjoy duty-free access to Chinese markets in a policy set to run until 2028. One country is excluded, however, Eswatini, penalized for maintaining diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Beijing says the move strengthens trade and boosts African exports, especially in agriculture and raw material. Analysts, however, warn the benefits may be uneven, with deeper structural challenges still limiting Africa's economic growth. The decision also signals China's growing influence on the continent and the geopolitical strings that may come attached. Before we go on Network Africa, today we bring you a fun fact for the day and possibly for the week. Did you know there is a gemstone so rare it makes diamonds look common? That's a Tanzanite. It's stunning blue-violet crystal. It's found in just one place on Earth, the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Discovered in 1967, Tanzanite is believed to be about 1,000 times rarer than diamonds. Its color can even shift depending on the light, ranging from deep blue to rich violets, making it one of the most mesmerizing gemstones in the world. Here's a catch, though. Experts say the supply could run out within a few decades due to the limited mining areas. While diamonds may be forever, Tanzanite might just be once in a lifetime. My producer had lots of fun writing that story. Thanks for joining us on the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.